Welcome back. So, in our last explainer, we kind of hit a wall, remember? We were stuck on this dilemma. How can something be a stable physical object and have a meaning that totally depends on its context? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on the architectural blueprint designed to solve that exact problem. Let's jump right in. Here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll revisit the core problem. Then, we'll introduce the key building block that changes everything. From there, we'll zoom out to see how these blocks get organized, the physics that connect them, and even the social rules they follow. And finally, we'll put the whole blueprint together. Right. This was the big cliffhanger. And it's a massive question. Before we can even answer who gets to build our future context, we first have to understand how a context-aware system can even be built. That's our mission for today. Okay, so to build a system that genuinely gets context, we can't just have a bunch of stable, individual pieces of information floating around. We have to figure out how they all fit together into a larger, meaningful whole. And this is the real puzzle. We've got our tokens, those stable atoms of meaning we talked about, but how do you design something that can work perfectly on its own, but also slot seamlessly into a bigger system and serve a larger purpose? How can it be both a self-contained unit and a team player? Well, the answer is this incredibly elegant concept from systems theory. It's called the Holon. And it is the absolute key to solving this paradox of being both independent and totally integrated at the same time. The term comes from the writer Arthur Koestler, and what it means is something that is, at the exact same moment, a complete thing in and of itself, and also just a single piece of something much bigger. It's a bit of a mind-bending idea, but once you see it, you start noticing it everywhere, especially in nature. Koestler called this dual personality Janus-faced, after the two-faced Roman god. Looking inward, a Holon is all about maintaining its own identity, its own integrity. It's a self-contained whole. But looking outward, it's all about integration, serving the needs of the larger system it's a part of. Think about a single cell in your body. It's a complete living thing on its own, but it's also just one tiny part of a tissue. It's both. And this is where a biological analogy makes it all just click. If a token is like DNA, the stable, unchangeable blueprint, then a holon is like the living cell that's built from that DNA. It's a real, functional unit. And just like in biology, these holons, these cells, combine to form more and more complex systems. Cells form tissues, tissues form organs, and organs form the entire organism. So, if holons are the cells, the next logical question is, how do we organize them? The answer isn't your typical top-down hierarchy. It's something way more dynamic, more intelligent. It's called a holarchy. We've all seen this, right? The classic corporate flowchart. The boss gives an order, it trickles down the chain of command, and the people at the bottom just do it. It's rigid, it can be super slow, and information pretty much only flows in one direction, down. A holarchy is completely different. The best way to picture it is like those Russian nesting dolls. Each doll is a whole that contains other wholes. And influence here isn't a one-way street. It's a constant, multi-directional flow of information and constraints. The outer layers give context to the inner ones, but the inner layers also inform and shape what the outer ones can do. And guess what? This is exactly how this new web is designed. At the very center, you've got your individual context, your own personal cell. That cell is nested inside a shared context for your organization, the organ, and all of that is nested within a universal context for all of humanity, the entire organism. Each layer provides the meaning and the rules for the one inside it. Okay, so we have our building blocks, the holons. We have our organizational structure, the holarchy. But how do these different pieces actually connect and talk to each other? What are the fundamental rules of the road? This is such a critical question. In a decentralized system like this, you don't have a manager telling you what connects to what. You need a set of fundamental principles that govern how everything relates to everything else. You need, like, a physics for meaning. And this is where the idea of semantic spacetime comes in. It's a framework that says there are four, and only four, basic ways that any two concepts can be related to one another. You can think of it as the fundamental geometry of knowledge itself. These four relationships are the universal toolkit for making sense of anything. You've got proximity, which is all about similarity, what's this near or like. Then there's sequence, what comes before or after it. You have containment, What bigger thing is this a part of? And finally, property. What are its attributes? What describes this thing? Any connection, no matter how complex, is ultimately built from these 4 simple types. All right, we have the physics. Now we need the social contract. How do all of these autonomous Holons, connected by the laws of semantic spacetime, actually decide to work together? I mean, with no central authority barking orders, how do you get independent agents to cooperate in a way that's reliable? How do you build trust in a network where everyone is their own boss? The answer is something called promise theory, and it's a beautifully simple model. Instead of forcing obligations from the top down, you have autonomous agents making voluntary promises to one another. Cooperation isn't forced, it's chosen. And the process is really straightforward. One agent makes an offer, a promise. The other agent evaluates that promise. Is this agent trustworthy? Does this help me achieve my own goals? If it decides to accept, a trusted interaction happens. And just like that, you can build these incredibly robust, scalable systems based on voluntary commitment, not command and control. Okay, let's put all the pieces on the table and see the big picture. We've talked about the building blocks, the structure, the physics, and the social rules. Now let's look at the complete architecture. Here it is. This is the blueprint. We begin with stable, verifiable tokens. That's our DNA. These blueprints are then used to create adaptive holons, our living cells. These cells organize themselves into nested holarchies, forming a complete organism of meaning. They navigate their world using the 4 fundamental laws of semantic spacetime, and they choose to cooperate with each other through promise theory. It's a beautiful stack where each layer builds perfectly on the last. And this really gets to the heart of why any of this matters. The future isn't just about hoarding more and more data to make slightly better statistical guesses. It's about building a system that can genuinely create meaning from context and do it in a way that is transparent, verifiable, and respects the autonomy of everyone and everything in the system. You see, this isn't just a technical upgrade. It's a whole new paradigm. For the first time, we have a clear architectural plan for moving AI from just approximating things to actually understanding them. So the final question isn't if we can build it anymore. The question is, now that we know how, what do we want it to become?